Stephanie West. Well, we're joined now from Edinburgh by Susan Boyle's brother, Jerry, and with us here in the studio, psychiatrist Dr. Linda Papadopoulos, who is no stranger to treating people in the public eye. Jerry Boyle, have you been able to talk to your sister today?
Yes, John, I spoke to Susan about mid-morning today, yes.
And how did she seem to you?
Oh, much happier, much more relaxed than she was when we spoke yesterday, and coming to terms with the fact that everybody knows who she is, and she now feels that she wants to calm down. She's a bit homesick, that's fair. She'd like to come home for a couple of days, just see her cat again, the now world-famous Pebbles, and just have a couple of days, make a cup of tea, relax, and go on from here and see what the future holds for her.
What do you think happened? It just all got too much for her, did it?
Yes, I think, you know, a bit of anxiety, taking things very seriously. I mean, it's a huge show, it's a huge opportunity, and just, you know, she's been subjected, as everyone knows, to a huge media frenzy, but, you know, she put herself there, she knows what she's doing, she's enjoying it, she loves the attention, but unfortunately, I think at the weekend, just a few things, a bit of homesickness as well, tended to culminate in her getting a bit anxious and a bit over-worried.
Do you think she was relieved not to win, or just very disappointed?
It's difficult to say because obviously we haven't discussed that. I mean, the first thing I was impressed with is the way that she said, you know, congratulations to Diversity, because they were wonderful. They were, everyone agrees they were tremendous. But I think Susan, she feels that, you know, as long as she can have a career in show business, as long as she can sing, then, you know, it's all been worthwhile.
There's been an awful lot. There's been an awful lot in the press about her vulnerabilities. I mean,
yes,
do you think that she was protected, or that perhaps she didn't need protecting? I mean, people have said that she had quite a learning difficulty and also, you know, a difficult start in life and the rest of it. Are all these things true?
I think there's a tremendous amount been said in the press about learning difficulties, and my line on this has always been the same, that although she over-worries about things and tends to take things far too seriously, learning difficulties, well, who knows, because she went to a perfectly normal primary school, indeed a perfectly normal secondary school, and she gained qualifications. She plays the piano, something I can't do, and she can obviously learn lyrics, and you know, I think there's far too much been said about this and too much made of it. I think Susan's personality is such that she worries about things, she gets upset about things, and she wants so much to do well that if, for instance, an example, when I spoke to her this morning, our main concern about our cat, of course, and coming home and seeing how's everybody at home, the main concern is, where do I go from here? Do people want to hear me sing? Is there a career for me?
Jerry, for the moment, thank you very much. Dr. Papadopoulos, do you think that people in these shows really do work out what people's vulnerabilities are and what the tensions and difficulties of all this might be? After all, a 10-year-old child broke down, and then you have Susan Boyle having to go into a unit.
I think it all depends on the kinds of assessments that are done before shows. You know, I think with reality TV shows like Big Brother, for example, where it was very clear that people had to be assessed for quite a while before, during, and after, you know, people understood why. I think shows of this ilk that are seen as, you know, as celebrating talent, I think this is the first time we've had to stop and think, hold on a second, that people with a very different understandings and capabilities and perceptions of what fame is come into these shows. And if something as unprecedented as this happens, then absolutely we need support, because people with different capacities to cope with the stress are entering these shows.
Did you have any sense of anxiety in the build-up to all this? After all, to have 100 million hits on YouTube is no small thing.
It isn't, and you know what? I would have had an anxiety even for someone that was media trained, that had, you know, had gone to a London stage school and knew what to expect. Let alone somebody like Susan, who had lived a very sort of, you know, simple life, like, you know, that hadn't been exposed to this at all. And it was everything. It was the fact that it was so disparate, the fact that there was such a long time between this kind of this build-up and the final time that she sang, and also the fact that it began to turn. I began to get anxious sort of the last week when all of a sudden they went from celebrating her to getting those sort of undertones that are so difficult to deal with any celebrity.
Jerry, do you think that your sister was protected? I mean, was she allowed to see her own doctor last week when she was feeling under pressure?
Well, living in Edinburgh, obviously she's in London, and I think there's some wonderful people down there, John, looking after her. I spoke to them firsthand, and we're perfectly satisfied that the right people are speaking to her. However, I think members of her family and some familiar faces and a bit of normality is what Susan needs.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you finally. Do you think she's really going to be happy to go to the States, or wouldn't it be happier just to come home? Just briefly.
I think she'll be... John, let me make it clear. She's very, very determined to continue with a singing career, and she fully appreciates that everybody wants to hear her sing. I mean, as I said earlier, she's hoping that everyone can put this aside and say, well, Susan, let's get on with the actual business of making a career.
Jerry,